Hey everyone, Dan from howtocatchanyfish.com here. I just wanted to share a video report of a trip that my daughter and I took to God's Lake, Manitoba, fishing mostly for pike and lake trout. The trip started out with a small plane flight from Winnipeg up north to God's Lake. Jasmine and I were the only two people on the plane. Alright, well, it's just us in the plane today, heading out to God's Lake. Hopefully we make it there. If not, hopefully someone finds this video and remembers us fondly. Flight was a little bumpy, but we got to the lodge in one piece. Took a look around the lodge, very nicely appointed, comfortable lodge. Got to our cabin and then started fishing. Well, we got in yesterday. I fished a little bit in the afternoon. It was a little slow. Just got a few pike. Then after dinner went back out. It was just pouring rain, windy, cold, but the lake trout were biting really well, so I was able to jig up 11 and lost a bunch. I started out fishing this white plastic tube jig and they were really hammering it, so I'd never had to switch to anything else. All the trout were nice, healthy, fat fish, nice range of color, really nice looking fish, great 2 hours of fishing. Today, second day, I woke up to howling winds. You can see just right in front of the lodge, it's blowing pretty good. Gonna try and get out in that and see what we can do. Out on the open lake, the wind was much worse than it was by the lodge, and there was some pretty large waves out there in some of the open areas we had to cross. If I'd been home, I probably wouldn't have fished in those conditions, but came up here to fish and the guide said it was okay, so we went out. I should say I went out. My daughter Jasmine wisely stayed at home. We managed to find some fish in some of the sheltered bays. We got quite a few pike casting spinners. I think we got 29, or I got 29 for the day, along with 5 walleye. So pretty decent fishing, no giants, but some pretty solid fish. But man, it was very, very windy, gusts up to 45 miles an hour. Cold, rainy. It was a tough day. I'm glad I had my rain gear, and I'm glad my daughter stayed back at the cabin. I did manage to catch my largest walleye of the trip, which had a really nice golden color, just like all the walleyes up there. Really beautiful fish. The next day, the weather was better. My daughter decided to come out. We started out the day trolling for walleye, and it took a little while, but we were able to catch a couple for our shore lunch. The shore lunches were really a highlight of the trip for me and for my daughter. They were delicious. I could have eaten that probably every day for a month and not gotten tired of it. Yay. Hooray! Here we go. We got our lunch. We got our lunch.
I love having lunch.
My daughter actually fished a full day that day, so we fished in the afternoon. She was able to get the hang of casting and retrieving and hook setting, and was able to get a couple of pike all by herself. The next day, my daughter decided to take a break, and I headed up on the float plane to God's River, where they have a trophy brook trout fishery. I'd never caught a brook trout, so my hopes were high. We headed downriver right at the start of the day, but unfortunately we had some motor trouble, had to motor back, and then ended up heading upriver a little bit. Fishing was very, very tough at first. Spent the whole morning without a brook trout bite and just had one small walleye. However, just when things were starting to look bad at around 3 p.m., I got my first bite from a brook trout, was able to land it. Nice 20 3/4 inch fish. Got another hookup, which I lost at the net, and then another nice fish, right around 20 inches, and then 2 more hookups that I didn't manage to land. But mission accomplished, got a couple brook trout. That night I decided to take Jasmine lake trout fishing. She hooked up with a nice one on the first drop, and I hooked up with one while I was filming.
Keep the pressure in. Try to gain on the rig. You might
Don't
get a
let
real
the
big one.
Yeah, that looks like a monster, Jazz. Don't let the rod touch the side. Reel. Reel. Don't let it. Don't give it any slack.
Okay.
You might want to put
Reel.
your hand there.
That seems like a better idea.
Yeah, just reel steady,
and then reel
Jazz.
up.
Real steady. Don't give it any slack. Oh, that looks like a nice one, Jazz.
Oh.
I wasn't even doing anything. There it is, Jazz.
Oh wow.
Yeah!
Good one. And just open the reel. And you just spit it as soon as you go to the net.
Seems like they do that a lot.
You want a picture with him?
Oh, yeah. There he is. There he is. Oh, nice one. The lake trout bit more or less full speed the whole time we were fishing. We just kept using those same plastic white tube jigs, and they kept biting them. Jasmine ended up with 6, I ended up with 7, and we really only fished from about 7:30 to 8:30, so really good fishing. The next morning, the weather was nicer. We headed out in the morning, started out by trolling for walleye, for shore lunch. We got a few that were too big, and then we got some that were the right size. And then we did a little bit of casting for pike, which went really well, got some decent ones. The pike were all released to fight another day, just like all the other fish except for the few that we kept for shore lunch. Jasmine decided to take a break in the afternoon, so we dropped her back off at the cabin. It was really convenient, our cabin was right there on the water. And then in the evening, I went back out and just hammered the lake trout. The lake trout were all easy to release. They swam down strongly, and that was nice to see. Beautiful evening on the water, just like all the other evenings. The next day was our best weather day by far of the trip, and the pike were just biting like crazy, including some really nice ones. We got several mid to high 30s fish, including this really fat 38-incher. I got a really big bite on a spoon. I knew it was going to be a really nice fish, and so I played it pretty conservatively and managed to net this gorgeous 43-inch fish, biggest fish of the entire trip. Always great to see a healthy release of a trophy fish like that. Jasmine had definitely gotten the hang of pike fishing by this point, and she was able to catch some nice fish herself. First a 35-incher, and then a really nice 39-incher, which was the second biggest fish of the entire trip for both of us. Best lures of the trip were this Mepps Muskie Killer with the Fire Tiger tail. That was pretty much the only thing that Jasmine threw the entire trip. And then for me, this Lucky Strike spoon in gold and orange. The next day was very similar. Really nice weather, nice sunny drive out, no waves. Water was clear in some of the spots. We were able to spot some free swimming pike, which was pretty neat. Caught a good number of pike, nothing huge, but some nice fish. And then went out in the evening and hit up the lake trout again. They were biting really well. It was actually really sunny. I had to put my sunglasses on and actually got a little bit of a sunburn. I've never had that happen at 8 at night before.
The lake trout fishing never really got old for me. Just kept catching beautiful, full-bodied fish, releasing them, and it was just a great evening. The next day was just pike mania. Lots of casting, lots of hooking up, lots of releasing pike. I was trying to get some footage with the GoPro. Unfortunately, the water in some of the areas we fished wasn't quite as clear, and so didn't get as much as I was hoping. But still got some nice footage. We certainly had enough shots with all the fish we were hooking and releasing, and just a really nice way to finish out our trip. Beautiful weather, good fishing, and a really good time with my daughter. Had an incredible sunset our last night. I didn't use any filters or anything. These pictures are just exactly how it looked. And then we headed out the next day. I highly recommend God's Lake and Elk Island Lodge in particular to anyone who wants to go and just catch a lot of fish in a really beautiful environment.